Well, call the meeting to order. Let's do the Pledge of Allegiance first. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Hey, there he is. Let me think here a second. All right, that's roll call. All right, Clerk Parn, can you do a roll call, please?
Supervisor Bertrand.
I am here as always.
Treasurer Hobbs.
Here.
Pern here. Trustee Monet.
Here.
And Trustee Detmer.
Here.
All present, sir.
Thank you. This meeting is a budget review, which technically means I'm going to give the budget to the board members. I emailed it to them yesterday. Some have it, some don't. Paper copies are here today. I'm going to read a statement about this because it is not where we're going to tear this apart. It is basically I am giving it to them, and there will be a 2-week period where the public will be able to see it and the board members will be able to see it before our public hearing on the budget on the 26th. So let me read this as far as an opening understanding. This is a budget proposal, but it's paramount that we all understand that the budget is a rolling project. It's always in motion. It's never really complete. It's always subject to amendment change, and amendment change is the norm. The budget distributed today is more realistically viewed as a snapshot in time and officially a period to make changes needed for the 24-25 budget, while also laying out the framework for the 25-26 budget. I am not fully aware of any of the line item details, as was approved by the board last month, only that the bottom line numbers were corrected as needed. More detailed analysis and additional changes will be done by the board over the next few months. There are no page numbers at this time on what I handed you hard copy. There will be by the time it is available for public review. If we'd have put numbers on it, it would have jumped everything a little bit too much, and we had to get it done yesterday. Same thing for the layout and the font size. That's probably going to change. It currently has my contact information on the last page. It will also be added to the first page. The intent is to have most questions and input from the public and the board emailed to me and resolved prior to the public hearing on 3/26/25. The pages flow by department, and we will run through those today. Not everything, just the departments. So a summary as far as what the budget is. The intent today is to ensure that the budget amounts needed to cover the bottom line of each department are updated and proposed. But it is also okay if a department runs in the red, as long as we have a plan to correct it. An example would be additional income that we know will be coming. The fire department, the fire fund, and the ambulance will all need to be revisited in depth starting this month and carrying into April. We will be doing a firefighter EMS recruitment drive in late April, hopefully late April. Be aware that Camp Cornelia is not in our budget. It used to be, but we do not budget for those payments. Current cash determination is not accurate for Camp Cornelia because we are missing some information on CDs that are out there. And the reality is we may owe a large payout within 3 years. We will go over the list of budget amendments needed now or before the end of the March 31st to close out 24-25. They will be passed out at our regular board meeting on 3/26 That should be 319.25. I'll give them to you today, but it's just a matter of letting you know what major changes we had to make. If we don't correct the last year's budget, the last fiscal year's budget by the end of this month, we will get red flagged on everything by the state and have to create correction plans to fix it all. We spent a lot of time going through making sure we were not either unable to meet something or that something was done in error, and we found a lot of things for the last fiscal year. We need to correct that at our meeting. The proposed budget will be put in both a binder for public review at the Lyon Township office and posted on our webpage. This version, I believe, is already posted as of about 45 minutes ago. Pam Scott, our recent hire, helped greatly in all three offices, the clerk, the treasurer, and the supervisor, with training and expertise in BS&A modules. Just some quick background. BS&A was offered 3 to 6 months to train everybody for $12,000, and they're backlogged. We ended up bringing Pam in for her expertise, and she's real good at it. Brought her in for expertise in BS&A modules, identifying the budget mistakes, which we'll go over, and that we needed to be aware of and helping us correct them in this proposed budget. She'll continue to help and determine actual cash on hand pretty soon for each department. This budget was reviewed and suggestions made by John Evans, the senior staff accountant at the UHY LLP. I have seen my copy because he gave me this back, which is very detailed. I'll spread it down the line here. We gave him the proposed budget. He came back and highlighted in a lot of different colors what he thought we should do. And just for your information here, when I spread this around, Pam Scott is real good with numbers. She had things narrowed down pretty tightly. He suggested that we buffer that stuff up, partially because he knows this was my first year doing a budget. And we ended up following his advice, almost to the T. In the future, it is obvious that we need to do much better on detailed reports from each department head and supplying that to the public at each board meeting. Those reports, or they, will be an important part for the basis of doing the succeeding year's budgets. If you have that information on hand and paper, you don't have to chase it on BS&A necessarily. It should be in both places. As of this budget's amendments, all of the ARPA, American Rescue Plan Act money, is now allocated. There will be very little excess money to do lake improvement and water quality projects. The previous board applied for absolutely no grant money. That is inexcusable. We hope to be able to access GLUA sewer grant money for water quality improvements and are pursuing that outcome. We will begin to use our planning commission to search for grant money in any way conceivable for the operation of Lyon Township. I have a person now who will help the planning commission get oriented and started on that. A couple planning commission, parks and rec, and cemetery committee members also have some experience. We have money budgeted now to pay for expertise in grant writing, and I suspect we will take advantage of that. Millages are not in vogue now and will be difficult to pass. There will be no more money, pandemic money, sorry, that's a typo, dropping out of the sky. To serve our residents, we need to get really, really good at grant writing and procurement going forward into this new fiscal year. So that is an overview. So you should all have a copy of this budget. And I'm going to go through just the departments because there's two layers to this. This has different line items, but they are not reflecting everything within those particular line items as to how the money was spent. We had agreed to not dive into that right now, and we're not going to. As I stated, we will be doing that with the fire department budget and a couple other things going forward. In the beginning, though, on the heading on the top, you have the 24-25 original budget, 24-25 amended, which is the changes that we made, which are going to be here, the 24-25 activity budget, and the 25-26 proposed budget. By no way do I understand all of how this hooks together. I got some of it now. I will get more in the next week or two. But to start out from here, the department number, the first thing here is non-departmental, and this is all revenue. This is money we took in. And this would be that they are not actually line items that reflect the departments of the township. These are all a bunch of additional things. Now, being that it's all revenue, on the second page, about halfway down, there's the totals there, but there's really nothing for us to do within that. This is all money that's coming in. On the second page, then, that's where Department 101 is Township Board Control. Again, a lot of line items, and we adjusted some money. At the bottom line, if you track down through this stuff, you will get to where the totals, where the net of revenues and appropriations are. This was the number that if there was something running in the red back in the line items, Kevin and I had talked about this previously. Who makes a budget where you're not balanced? Well, they do. If there's something in the red, that's perfectly fine, as long as in your bottom numbers, it is covered. So we made sure that there was enough money to cover anything that might have been amiss, and we bumped a few things up. But it is not about making it balanced. It's never really balanced. It's constantly rolling with expenditures and revenues coming in. So at the end of, what fund was that? Township Board Control, those are the numbers. The next department is 170, that's Supervisor Control. Exact same situation where we added money if we thought we were going to need it in the future. And you end up coming out with net revenues, and we made sure that we were okay in that area. 173 was the Maintenance Department. Exact same situation. A lot of this stuff was okay, some that wasn't, we fixed, and if it's not, that's okay. If the bottom line covers it, it covers it, and again, much to my surprise, you can run at a deficit on the bottom line. That's not, example would be, we don't have enough money to cover it, but we're looking at tax revenue coming in 6 months, and then we will. That is all acceptable. We don't have anything like that, but the way that it is structured to operate within BS&A, that's all perfectly fine. Next department is 215 for the clerk. Same situation, but we did bump up wages where we had given raises. Salary, clerk wages and salary. Another thing we decided, and we will finalize on the 26th, is to not add any cost of living, anything like that, into this current budget proposal. I am suggesting, and we will have to decide, that in about 6 months, we can look at this again, and we have people who we just recently gave raises to, and we are recently took office. In 6 months, if we determine that individually, there'll be performance reviews, that if we are doing our jobs and everything's okay, then I think we can talk about adding the cost of living right then. That's perfectly acceptable. We don't have to do it now. I do not agree. I think Garish is trying to go for 4%. I think the going right now is at 2 point something, but we're not even going to deal with it right now. We're going to roll with what we got for the pay that what we got, and let's do our jobs before we talk about any more money coming in for salary. Same deal on the net revenues and expenditures. So the Board of Review is Department 247. And that's the same situation where all we're doing is really dealing with that bottom line number. So if we go to the next page, that would be Department 253, which is the Treasurer Department. Again, the exact same situation, and we did throw money in there for wages for a deputy treasurer. And if anything else was not where it needed to be, we made changes if it needed to be made. And that is all reflected again in the bottom line numbers. 257 is the Assessor and Equalization Department. Same situation. I will say the one right on the top there, 101 is $300. That's actually a wage for Julie Tatro, who makes X amount of money on a contract for us as assessor. But in order to be legal, she needs to be paid a certain amount of money for something in cash as an employee. That's what that $300 is for. Other than that, right again, back to the bottom line. Department 262 is elections. Same situation. I don't remember right offhand if we bumped anything there or not. I think we did because we have an election coming up in May. But same deal on the bottom line numbers. 265 is Township Hall Control. Same situation. If it was okay, we carried money over. If it wasn't, we added money. And if the bottom line is good, we're good. Department 303 was Ordinance Enforcement Control. Once again, right to the bottom line. We did spend $15,000. That was part of Harry's salary at that point in time. And we're going to discuss on the 19th the parameters that we want to use as a board for hiring another ordinance enforcement officer. And at that point in time, as with everything in here, if it turns out we have to change a number, we just change it. It's not that hard to do, and it is the norm. Department 721 is planning. In the same situation where net revenues and appropriations are the bottom line. 722 is zoning. Same situation. Some of the money, like zoning board of appeals and planning commission, if it didn't get used, that doesn't mean it isn't going to get used next year. So we're not going to it was 5,000 and we only used 2, so we'll get rid of it. We'll drop 3. No, it needs to carry over with the assumption that next year there will be people and there will be more meetings. 806 is the zoning board of appeals and control. Same situation. Department 862 is employee share and of Social Security and Medicare. Each of the departments that we have employees in has a separate expenditure for employee share and Social Security and Medicare. So that is not township wide. Each department that has employees has that. Social Security revenue estimated fund appropriations. Again, bottom line, we should be good there. Then Fund 203 is a road fund. We carried a number over, excuse me, from the previous board. I had already talked with the Roscommon Road Commission about this. And the previous board had indicated what the number would be already, and we're going to stay right about there. The Road Commission has planning set for 2 or 3 or 4 years. I'm satisfied that they have a pretty good plan of what they're doing. I have done some road maintenance and construction there. I have no disagreement with what they're doing, but if it turns out that you get a road that has a blowout or something like that happens, we can make amendments to this, but this is the amount of money the township would spend, and then I think it's somewhere in the neighborhood of, we put in 25%, they put in all the rest. So there's a lot of money flying around in there. Again, net revenues and expenditures, making sure that that was all right. 446 is the road expense, which is pretty much an extension of that. And again, ending fund balances in revenue and expenditure on the bottom, being the bottom line. The fire fund is here at 206, and then just down a little ways is Department 336 is fire department. Looking at this again, I'm not sure that's the right terminology. I think we have a fire equipment fund, and then we have a fire department ambulance service fund. I'll check on, those may not be titled correctly. We bought a fire truck, and we had to do a lot of maneuvering and then make sure that we did the maneuvering correctly to pay for that truck. The bottom line on the expenditures and the revenue, I believe is going to come out all right, or came out all right, but if it's in the red, we know why it's in the red, and we would fix that. Unfortunately, our copier does not copy in color. But the fire fund is part of what we are going to dive into next month. We need to completely tear apart what's going on in the fire department and the millage for a couple of reasons, so that we're aware of what's going on, what the line items, what's being spent, and how much money is left in their current millage, because I think they're coming due in 2 years. And you have probably seen what happens with recent fire department requests. They're not being reviewed well. So we need to get in there, and we also budgeted money for doing a fire department recruiting. Hope we can get that started by mid to late April. Our fire department desperately needs help. All local fire departments do. We need to put money into recruiting and trying to get some people here and create some incentives to try and get some new people involved on our fire department. Next is 336, and again, that's fire department, but one of these is an equipment fund and one is a ambulance and fire department fund. They are separated, but we had to cross one to the other to pay for the fire truck, which is acceptable as long as we put the money back next year.
Fire equipment is 406.
Yeah, I may come across it in here,
You will.
but I'm pretty sure it's not fire fund and fire department. That's probably not the right terminology, at least on this page for 206 and 336. So turning the page, it carries on 3/4 of the way down the page to where their revenues and appropriations and expenditures are. And then the department, the ambulance, Department 651, that's part of what I have to look at, whether this should have all been lumped together or this is actually broke down correctly. Considering that CPA looked at it, I'm not sure that they would have looked at whether that was correctly titled, but we'll get it figured out. Under the ambulance, yeah, I know, I'm real sure that's not right, because under ambulance, you're talking about all the EMS meetings, life support, contractual training. It may or may not be correct, but I'm not sure that that's exactly the right title. But in the end, under the capital outlay and the loan repayment is where the bottom line is. And once again, that's what we are operating on. And if it is not looking like we balanced it, that's because we didn't. And we would make corrections if more money is coming in. Department 862 is employee share of Social Security and Medicare, and again, that is going to be related to fire department employees. Estimated revenue for Fund 206 on the very bottom there. Again, the bottom line is going to come out all right. How we got there might have got shifted around quite a bit, and maybe even some areas in the red. Not a big concern right now, anyway. So the next page will be the same thing with the fund balances. There's a lot of money in the fire department fund, a lot. The next one would be Fund 208, the Cemetery Parks and Recreation Fund. Why cemetery, parks, and recreation are combined eludes me, but that's where it is. And we're back to non-departmental for them, which in theory is not really related to the department, other issues, other money that's needed. PILT, I used to know what that is, I'm not sure right at the moment. But it goes down through the current taxes and comes out at net revenue and appropriations for non-departmental, at being okay on the bottom line. Department 276 is the cemetery. Same situation there, where we're really only dealing with a bottom line number right now and making sure that that's okay. And again, that there isn't some serious problem that we need to amend yet for the 24-25 budget and not get ourselves in trouble. Department 751, Parks and Rec. If I remember right, there's a lot of money in there. And we didn't use it. And again, I think this is a fallback. I don't know why they did not write for grants. I think some of that money was put in there for matching money, potentially for grants. I'm not sure. We did set aside $15,000 for matching fund money for grants township-wide. But there's a lot of money in Parks and Rec, and why it didn't get spent on improving the Parks and Rec, I couldn't even begin to tell you. But it's there again now because we're not in the business of taking it away. We'll figure out ways to use it appropriately. Same situation, employee share, Social Security for those employees. And then estimated revenues and the bottom lines. And getting into Fund 249, which is the building department. This is another area that we need to get into. We found that there's a lot more money, I don't want to say astronomical amounts, but the amount being paid out does not match what we see currently on contracts for 90% of the money going to the building inspector, plumbing inspector and stuff. We're working on a bottom line. Didn't dive into that, but besides the fire department, this is another area that we will quickly have to get into and figure out exactly what's going on there. Plus, there are contracts. Robert and Morris asking for 3-year contracts to extend the current situation. And at our board meeting on the 19th, we need to be prepared and have looked at those contracts and have an understanding of whether we're going to approve that or not, or what we as a board are going to want to do. By the 19th, I will know the purpose and the rationale for why the payments seem to be higher than you would think. But again, the bottom line is okay, so we're good on doing the budget proposal. 371, Building Inspection Department, pretty much the same thing. It is all under our building inspection, electrical and plumbing. Bottom line's okay. Next page, estimated revenues, the same thing. Okay, Fund 406. Okay, this is the fire equipment fund, so the other two should be combined and titled maybe. We'll see. Fire equipment fund. Ending balances, we had to move a lot of money around. At this point in time, I believe we found it all. The fire truck was ordered and delivered early, which created a problem. And we pretty much have it figured out. So going into the next fiscal year, we'll be all right as long as we make corrections for the last year for anything we had to do to pay for that truck. And I believe we have them all in here if we did them, and we did. So going back to the bottom line on it, should come out all right, even though it might not look like it right at the moment here. In particular, I think we moved money with the assumption that we'd move it back in 6 months because of the next tax revenue coming in, if I understand that correctly. Okay, Fund 517 was a trash fund. Again, with the bottom line numbers, I know Treasurer Hops is working on getting bids from the people, and maybe we will be in a position to change something going forward, but we're certainly not going to change it for the money that we are proposing we put into next year's budget. Maybe we could save some money by the time we do something different, but we're not there yet. That carries on into the expenses, and again, net revenue and appropriations, and we're good there. 862 is the employee share. Oh, that's for that department. Okay, then we're basically at the bottom line numbers here, which is confusing to look at, but we're okay. What I have on the absolute bottom here is that the budget was reviewed by John Evans, the senior staff accountant at UHY LLP, and as I stated before, he gave us this feedback, and we were pretty good then, and we made it even better based on what his feedback was. And they did a quick turnaround. They did a great job, and Pam did a great job helping us all. So the last thing on here, again, is that any questions, to contact me. In the version that we come out with, I'll change it if it's on the webpage already. I want that right up at the top, too, so people understand. If the questions come to me in writing, I can get specific answers. If they come from the board to me in writing, I can get specific answers, more details. Be in better shape for the public hearing on the 26th to answer as many questions in detail as we possibly can. But again, the understanding has to be there that this is a rolling show. I know Kevin and I, we're used to doing budgets in different ways, and it was like, how can that be? Well, because your expenditures and your revenues are constantly rolling, we're really looking at a snapshot right here, making sure that there was no serious mistakes in 24, 25, and proposing what we will do in 25, 26. So all of that being said, and I am sorry for the length of it, nobody's sorrier than me. I've been working on this for a month. There it is. So it is now in the hands of the board members for review. They can look at it, and any questions they have, they can forward to me. And collectively, we can get in a position where we are very well prepared to propose it, or to have it ready by the public hearing on the 26th, and possibly pass it or approve it at the board meeting that evening. It might not be that evening. It would be within the next 2 days, if not that evening. Certainly want to hear input at the public meeting, and of course, we're going to hear good ideas, and maybe what they say we're going to do, and then we'll put it in there. That's the whole point of the public review. So at this point, I'm going to stop. And if any other board members have anything to say, please do. Again, specifics on this, I may not be able to answer, but I'll try if I can. So if you got anything, go at it.
Just looking at this, is there the building fund?
It's under that hall maintenance stuff. And I couldn't find it right now for you.
Yeah, I was just,
It's in there as far as something, because I know we put in 15,000 for building improvement.
okay, that's in there. That's the one I was looking for.
It's another one. It's in there somewhere. I know that.
All right, I'll find it.
It may even be in the, well, see, when we add money to stuff, that's not an amendment. it's the amendments are gonna be with, things that we had to add to cover what went wrong in the last one.
Yeah, this is a good.
Well, we'll get some questions, then I'll read that off, because it's important that we understand.
I mean, there's definitely gonna be changes to my department on this budget, especially when it comes to wages. There will be no increases this fiscal year for us, and there also will be no claiming of mileage for my department for this fiscal year.
That's a great point, because we're putting it in there, but that don't mean it's gonna get used.
Yeah, and I'm gonna suggest we don't put it in there because it's not gonna happen, so, I mean, it just, for me, it's, makes sense to do that. And I would also suggest, when we know a little more, probably come end of April, any excess money, we're gonna have to think about putting a percentage away for this Camp Cornelius sewer thing.
Great point.
Probably over the next couple of years, and, you know, we're gonna see how it works out, but, you know, it's definitely gonna be short.
How about you, if you could, please, take a minute to explain that for the camera, for the people that watch this video, where we're at on that.
Well, the from what I understand, the initial loan back in 2007, I think it was, there was no payments for 2 years, but people could pay, and people could pay up front to avoid paying interest, but the township could not pay up front. We had to just make our yearly payments. So now it's at the point where probably 30% of the people are already paid for their sewer. And we've got 3 years left to pay on this loan. So we're gonna be behind. There's no question about that. So that's why I'm suggesting it at the end of the fiscal year, whatever revenues are left, we as a board have to pass something saying we want to put whatever the percentage is away in a, you know, a CD, whatever, to keep that money for the end of when the loan comes due. So that just, I would suggest doing that.
No, I mean, all suggestions are welcome. If you would, just type that up shortly or send me an email so that I can stick it in with everything else so that we're talking about it later.
Yep, I got it wrote down here.
No, I hear you. I mean, this is a lot of money. This could wreck us. And in my opinion, the previous two boards, this has been going on a while, kicked this can down the road. I think the plan was faulty from the beginning. I don't know if there's a combination, you don't want to take accountability for what you started. I don't know what happened, but we're the ones suffering the brunt right now, this township.
Yeah, I mean, there's no point in going back blaming anybody. It is what it is, and we just have to deal with it and fix it. And so,
yeah, what you're suggesting is exactly what we're going to have to do if we have to start socking money away. I just wish that would have started 6 years ago when they knew that this was what was going to be happening. But it didn't. You're right. We're where we're at, and we got to fix it.
You did mention that I should be in contact with you, and I have several items there, but I'll type them up and you'll have a list.
Well, and Pam will be back around. Asking her might help some of what you're,
Oh, sure.
you know.
Yeah, but just as the treasurer was saying, there'll be no mileage bill from the clerk's office either. There'll be nothing there. We just throw that in as part of our duties and
Yeah,
that's the way it is.
not too surprisingly, it's hard to tell how many times there was a bill for 6 miles to go pick up the mail.
Mm-hmm.
The big ones to go to training, I get. Yeah, I understand. Anybody else? Okay, so at that point, let me read this off then after the comments. These are the budget amendments that we will have to make to not end up having to do corrective action plans on the 2024-25 budget. So they are actually amendments in the 2025, but we will pass these, I believe, in mass on the 19th. Pardon me? No, I think we can get away with doing this earlier, maybe not. If not, if we have to do it on the 26th, we do. Oh, yeah, you're right. All right, we wouldn't be able to do it there. Thank you for keeping me in the protocol.
Sorry.
Anyway, I'm just going to read it off. Tax tribunal, penalties and interest on taxes, other federal grants. That was some ARPA money stuff. So these are either amendments, movements, or corrections that we need to make. Deputy supervisor, deputy clerk wages, improvements, professional and contractual services, employee share and Social Security, Medicare, fire call, fire officer, maintenance and repairs, fire equipment. And right there, that's a lot of money's flying around for that fire truck. Insurance and bonding, capital outlay, dues and trade manuals, contractual mechanical inspections, transfer from the fire general fund, and miscellaneous, and then fire equipment. So after going through all of this, this is what we came up with as far as these are the things we need to correct to keep ourselves out of hot water for what happened last year. That is, as Kevin said, let's not put blame anywhere. It's just something we're going to have to do. At that point, I guess it's open to public comment if you guys got anything you want to say.
John Barda, Lyon Township. And I know this is not a question and answer period, so if you guys aren't interested in answering, I understand. But a couple of things. On the Camp Cornelia.
Hang on, I just want to let you know that I will go through the film. So I'm not going to write your questions down, but I will do my best to get answers.
I appreciate that.
You're not contagious, are you?
You know what? I hope not.
Okay. I feel bad for you.
Michael,
Okay, I feel bad for you. There's a lot going around.
thanks. As far as Camp Cornelia goes, the 2000, is there any place to get some information on that? 2007, I know Kevin mentioned that there were no payments for 2 years that were required. I'd just like to understand that a little bit more. And you don't have to explain it. If there's a place for me to check it, but if you can, that would be good.
Kevin, use your mic because other people might want to look too.
I would just, the one of the guys who set this whole thing in motion, and who will be able to help you out, his name is Brian Cook. He's the treasurer at HLUA. So he would be able to definitely answer some of those questions for you as well. I am just starting to get into it, so I mean, I can give you what I know, but it's not a lot at this time.
It sounds like people were able to prepay, and so people were prepaid.
Yes.
So they were avoiding whatever kind of interest or whatever was involved. The township could not do that, so they had to continue to make their payment.
Correct.
And what is the delta? What is the amount that's coming in 3 years?
It's about 180,000. That payment's for the next. That's this year. It might come down a little bit. I didn't bring it with me, but it's basically this year we owe. I think it's 170, then 160, I want to say, and then 150 at the end, right around there. I mean, the numbers are probably off a little bit, but they're close.
Okay, alrighty. we're paying 170K this year, correct?
Yes.
Okay, I guess it sounded like you said there was a big number at the end, but
It's, the last one is basically that one,
150.
yeah, that's the,
Okay.
yeah,
that-
when it's done.
So,
And that's,
Yeah.
that's
it-
probably
For the next
me not-
3 years, it's 500, 500,000, whatever those 3 years equal to, so, but the problem is, we're gonna be collecting less and less every year because people, like I said, I think it's probably 25-30% are done paying.
oh, I see, okay, so we're collecting every year, but it's less.
But some
And so
people-
that amount is increasing, and so the last year it's gonna be more significant.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
So I believe it was I'm trying to find the paperwork, but I got this information from the treasurer for the authority, and I'm trying to find the actual loan, like why would we not pay for 2 years, but residents could pay? I mean, I don't understand that kind of a loan, so we're trying to locate it to find out more on it.
Okay, great. All right, so, and I guess it
What-
makes sense because we are collecting and then paying, but we're not really budgeting for any shortfall, and it's all coming at the end of this.
Yeah, there's money to pay in that fund that we have been collecting. It's gonna, by the time we get to the end, we're gonna be short, probably. It looks like it to me, I don't know, I could be wrong, but I would rather be safe than sorry.
Yeah, we were kind of informed by Brian before that we may be in the hole on this thing over $100,000. And we're now getting into it. My problem is when you do a SAD, why would they let anybody pay it off and beat the interest? Because you're counting on the interest to pay the thing off for the term of the SAD. I don't even understand how that happened. But it did.
Okay, great. I appreciate that. I can get a hold of, or I can send Brian a message or get his email, or next time I see him, I'll ask him. But thank you. I appreciate that. I sympathize with you guys having to do the budget, and especially if you guys are relatively new at it. It doesn't sound like Kevin is, but in that you have some comfort from John Evans as far as what you're doing. It concerns me, honestly, when it sounds like my wife, the way she spends, it's like, hey, we got a budget, but if she needs to buy another pair of shoes, she just does, and so it's like, hey, if we've got these line items, if we're short, we're just gonna add money, and that makes me uncomfortable. It seems like, relative to the revenues that you have coming in, you ought to be able to know what those revenues are. They're gonna change a bit, but you ought to be able to say, here's what they are, and so here's for the whole year, and so here's what that number is. So, and I've had to build budgets, I've had to hold people accountable. So, I just wanted to express that I'm a little uncomfortable with that. But if John Evans has looked at it and you have some trust in him, then
I agree with you wholeheartedly. I don't want to see any red on this budget. And I mean, is it going to be? Is that going to happen? Probably not. I mean, things come up, but yes, no red. I mean, that's
well, that's yeah. I mean, and that's not uncommon for any budget. I mean, you get X number of dollars, whether you're a department or you're the whole company, and you have to know. You have to guess that. So. Anyway, I do sympathize with that. So those are my concerns. That's what I appreciate the questions and the answers.
Thanks, John. I would only add that nobody was more surprised than me to find out that it wasn't about balancing it. It's about moving forward. It was more about you better make sure you didn't screw up last year than what you're going to do next year. Because if you screwed up last year, the state's going to be all over you for correction plans. That part we had to do. The rest is pretty arbitrary in a lot of regard. And you're right. Pam Scott helped us get right down to the nitty gritty, and John Evans said, don't do that. Because if you get that close and something goes wrong, you got a problem. So we did buffer things back up.
And this budget is pretty conservative, because the numbers I gave you when it came to tax revenues, I was very conservative for a reason, so, you know, that's the way,
Yeah,
that's the way I like to do it.
Yeah, I don't think we're throwing anything around unduly. The only thing we planned for was building improvements, possibly a laptop, and grant money, having matching grant money available in a category that we didn't have to move it around. If we get grant and you can match it, we got to have money there for that. But go ahead.
And the building improvements that are in there budgeted, I think it was 15,000.
Yeah, that's minor.
From what, from the quotes I have to do the parking lot, sealing it, painting the lines, painting the building and landscaping, we're gonna be under that, so we'll be good.
Yeah, I don't think anybody here, I don't know what the plan was, but pretty much let it go to hell. And we're not in a position to say, well, hey, let's do a millage and build a new building over by the fire department or something. That's not gonna happen. So we're kind of, the parking lot's falling apart. Probably should have got taken care of 2 years ago. Some of the boards on the outside of the building are rotting on the bottom. You have a paint job that consists of a paint job and then somebody put spots on it to cover other spots. We're not going anywhere fast, so we might as well fix it up to the extent that it's not falling apart. It's not like we're trying to make it luxurious. It's maintaining the value of your house. Don't let it go to hell. Okay. Is there any other comments from anybody? All right. Any last board comments, just in case?
I hope you feel better, John.
All right. Well, then I would ask for a motion that we adjourn this meeting.
I make the motion.
Okay, we have a motion. Could you do a roll call on it? Or, well, we can do it by affirmation if you get a time.
Yeah, 120.
All those in favor of closing this meeting down, say aye.
Yay.
Aye. Those opposed? Okay, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much.